Hi, everyone. Welcome to Poets House. My name is Leo Kreider. I'm an Access Services Associate here, working on our library and our showcase exhibition. Thank you so much for joining us for the reading this afternoon. For those of you who may be new to the space, Poets House is a library and a literary center that is free and open to the public with dedicated public programming, exhibitions, and special collection spaces. We have one of the most comprehensive independent poetry collections that is available to the public, including over 100,000 volumes of poetry. And we also host readings, workshops, reading and writing groups, and youth programs in this space and around the city. One of our flagship programs that I have the privilege of working on is the Showcase Exhibition, which is an annual display of all poetry published within the last year, arranged by publisher. And that includes all range of publishing. We are currently preparing for our 31st exhibition of books published in 2026, which opens December 12th this year. And we've been thrilled to count Black Lawrence Press among the publishers represented in this program. We're very honored to have them here for today's reading. And this reading features poems from just 6 of the 188 Black Lawrence titles that are in the Poets House Library, available for people to read for free. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you to Black Lawrence for being such wonderful partners and making small press poetry available to the public here. Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Diane Gettle, who will be running the show for the rest of today's event. Diane Gettle is the executive editor of Black Lawrence Press and has worked in small press publishing for over 2 decades. Diane is the founder of Sapling, a weekly publication for writers interested in placing their work with small presses and literary magazines. She lives in Mount Vernon with her family. Please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you to everyone here at Poets House, and thank you to everyone for this amazing turnout. As a small press editor, I have hosted events with like 3 people in the crowd, and this is really, really, truly a joy. It is also a joy to say that Black Lawrence Press is in its 22nd year, and we have a lot to celebrate this year. Thank you. We have published over 400 authors. We, as many of you know, have absorbed the titles of 2 other small presses that closed and kept those titles in circulation. And we have some really big things coming up. 2 years ago, we became the new publishing home of the Philip Levine Prize. And we, going forward, are also going to be the new publishing home of both Cave Canem's Daracot Edie Chapbook Prize and Best Small Fictions. So we've got really, really good stuff coming up. I'm not going to talk about the press very much because really this is a day to celebrate our poets. We are going to start with David Rigsbee, who is one of the first poets that really trusted us with his work way back in the day with a chapbook. David is the author of 23 books and chapbooks, including 12 previous full-length collections of poems. In addition, he has also published critical works on Carolyn Kaiser and Joseph Brodsky, whom he also translated. He has co-edited 2 anthologies, including Invited Guest, an anthology of 20th century Southern poetry, a notable book selection of the American Library Association and the American Association of University Professors. And I'm going to hand it over to our authors, but I would like to let everyone know that we have all of their books available for at the back of the room, and you can sign up to become a Black Lawrence Press poetry subscriber today. So, without further ado, welcome David.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, Leo, and thank all of you for being here. This is such a lovely crowd, and I see so many faces of people that I know and love here, and so this is going to be a wonderful little bit. I'm going to read 5 poems. I think they're very accessible, so you'll appreciate that. The first one is actually an autobiographical poem about the coming of integration, as we called it, back in the early 1960s when I was in junior high school. And the poem is called Joan, Joan. It was no different than any other day. Already we were hyper aware of the clock, whose poker face ticked toward 9. Our teacher was a clueless woman with her upswept stainless pussycat glasses, slip strap inching down her sleeveless arm as she diagrammed sentences that looked like the cutaway of a ship. Words on deck, then all the way down to steerage. The late student was a tall girl, Joan, the first heir of integration. I will not say beneficiary, because it was the day we tortured her. She seemed a lonely girl, but it would be more correct to say that our prank only bolted the torment of her being there, where she belonged, to learn how language sought the measure, to release her from the trap of thoughts unexpressed. Someone had the brilliant idea to bring a box of thumbtacks and share them with us before class. We leaned over and pour 3 or 4 like spilled candy on the oak desk seat. Then we returned to our zits and waited, staring at the desktops, books closed. She appeared. The teacher looked up, said nothing, and returned to her chore. Wishing to be invisible, Joan moved among the seats, pulling the skirt of her white dress aside to pass down the row until she found her seat, and looking up at the gray teacher, sat. Color of plum, color of internal sweetness fading, the jolt of the joke revealed. All that we could never know passed us then, the way a blanket of blackbirds suddenly sweeps itself off the sweet gum and scatters into the Carolina night, leaving the leaves for a moment shaken. For she was a child, and we were children. Thanks. I have a couple of poems that describe poets I have known. One is a poet who just observed his 80th birthday last year, as a kind of a coterie poet. People in the know are in the know, you know, and the rest are clueless. But he's a good poet, but he's very shy, and John, you know, you've heard me read this poem to you before. It's called Get It Down, and it does mention at the end Ritsos. Ritsos is Yanis Ritsos, who was a 20th century Greek poet who was an activist and a fighter in the Civil War on the right side. He was in jail, and nothing stopped him from producing book after book after book. He was very, very prolific, and a lot of his stuff has been translated into English. And he was one of the poets, along with Cavafy and Safaris and those guys, who were important to boomers who were growing up and experienced the translation boom that happened basically in the 60s, around the time of the New Image and so forth and so on. Anyway, I just mentioned him in passing at the end. I had a friend, this is called Get It Down. I had a friend who was so pathologically shy, he barely functioned in public. He was, in essence, a hermit living in a dune shack. Unfortunately, he wrote poetry. And this brought him to the attention of an art colony that offered him safe haven, in return for which he had only to push paper, arrange chairs, and host weekly readings by prominent poets. It was almost shtick as he stood, a large man, before the gathering, hands folded defensively over his crotch, and paused long enough to give the audience also pause before he swept one hand mechanically by way of introduction and blurted out, "Miss Bishop," or "Stanley Kunitz," then found his chair. It was a performance of the highest order, in one sense, and no one who was there ever forgot it. He was a beautiful and mysterious poet, too. I said unfortunately only in the sense that he had to overcome his shyness in order to look a fool in the eyes of all, and I imagine him each time going home from the weekly humiliation to write the most radiant poems as the green sea gnawed its way up to the shack and the crabs scissored across the wooden steps, as irrepressible as I imagine Ritsos was, confessing to his young executor, "You see, I'm trying to get all this down before I die." And I'm reading a poem that's in a lot of ways is similar to that one. It describes a translator. This summer, one of the two greatest living translators of classic Chinese poetry died. That was Jerome Seaton. If you want to read some good translations and you're tired of reading Red Pine, well, nobody tires of reading Red Pine, read Jerome Seaton, who has published about 40 books and so forth, and including a book that I helped him get published back in the 70s called The Wine of Endless Life, drinking song, Taoist drinking songs. It's excellent. But he he really hit it home when he published the Shambhala anthology of classic Chinese poetry. And please look him up. He's a wonderful, wonderful translator. Started out as a poet and then switched hats. And the argument of this poem is in effect that, no, he didn't switch hats, really. He just switched facets. He didn't have his own poetry, but he had that of others, which he translated. And those versions became his oeuvre, the work of his life, although it was also the work of others. In this way, he kept himself to himself, and that public-private divide others find both necessary and a great human enigma, he dismissed altogether. His translations became famous for their clarity and prudent word choice. He won praise for not imposing himself on his authors, but for disappearing into the service of the art. What nobody saw was what a great poet he had become. His private life was always the theme, and every work was a masterful elegy for what, now singing in an alien tongue, it was no longer. In the end, he did all that a man could do who wishes, as Emerson said of every man, to justify himself, who would otherwise stumble on the way to success and fade unexpressed and obscure. Okay. Here's a little poem that about my father. Will resonate with Arielle, I think, actually, because it takes place in Durham, in fact. My dad used to do second jobs, and one of them was to do roofing, and I would join him on these, and we have these adventures at dawn going all over town putting roofs down on people's houses. Roofers. At the knock and sound of my name, I would rise and sit before my father's meal. Fried eggs, grits, link sausage, canned biscuits, watching him pour over, then fold, the Morning Herald by his place. In the still dark, we would cross town in an old Chevy pickup, pick up a man by the name of Whitey or Buck, and we would sit 3 to the bench. Through lightless streets to an old house below Forest Hills, or some mill hand's place hard against Duke Forest. Pretty soon we were roofing, gouging off the outdated, loose, and rotted shingles, flinging them over the dark edge, laying down new ones in tight array, nail-lined, error-free. We woke the neighborhoods those Saturdays. Hammers in holster, we stood in the midst of rooftops as the colors came on. First, the long ago rose, then a strange green, as my father, turning, bent to his row, and one by one, from between his silent lips, pulled the nails. Thanks. And then finally, I'd like to read you a poem about going to a football game and what happened. And it begins with Hegel. And it's the only poem in existence that is about a football game that begins with Hegel. And why it does, I don't know. That was just a soup starter for me. It's called Clothespins. In the end, Hegel says, it's all war. But we're not at the end, are we? We are somewhere along the spectrum, marking what was, like the way my mother used to leave the clothespins on the line at the very place she had placed wet sheets, pants, towels, socks. They were stories, too, the clothespins, though what they marked in light of early death and despair is hard to say. And was there one for regret? There should have been many for that, and the line long. I had thought, if only momentarily, about Hegel, because I also wanted to think about the power of language to bring about love in the face of the failure of language to revive that same love. Let that sink in. An old professor, now deceased, once told me that he had dreamt the last words of Shakespeare. Words are fleas. He was a professor of drama, of course. What other person would have such a dream, both demented and true? For if words are true, Hegel is right. And the poem that drew the lover in gave way to the useless one that couldn't sing her into staying. And yet the fleas get attention too. No doubt about that. I will never forget a September Saturday, I went to a football game at LSU. At halftime, the announcer barked that former Governor Jimmy Davis would lead us all in a song. A tiny geriatric in a cowboy hat mounted the end zone stage and stood with his guitar before a mic. He strummed and sang the first words. Suddenly, 100,000 fans in that great bowl rose as if on cue and began singing, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." Everyone had the words, as they say, by heart, and I too fell under the sway of the mass enchantment, finding myself having to deal with hot tears. Yet singing along in a choir of 100,000 souls with the one-hit governor from lost time who had such sweetness, such sorrow, a politician no less. As I say, such sorrow, such collective sorrow marked in a song in the heart of everybody. Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce Arielle Hebert. She is a queer poet in North Carolina with roots in Florida and Louisiana. Excellent. Did you ever go to Baton Rouge? Oh, okay. She holds an MFA in poetry from North Carolina State University, and that means that she has had many encounters with Dorianne Lux and Joseph Millar, two of my old friends and terrific poets both. In fact, I edited a chapbook of theirs a few years ago. Yep. She won the 2024 Lit South Award for Poetry, selected by Jericho Brown, and was included in the Best New Poets 2024, guest edited by Anders Carlson Wee. Bottom Feeders is her debut poetry collection. Terrific title, by the way. Recently published by Black Lawrence Press in June 2026. Arielle believes in ghosts and magic. Yeah. Welcome, Arielle.
I might be a little too short for this. There we go. All right, that's better. Thank you, David. That was a wonderful reading, and I'm so excited to be here at Poets House with my pressmates, some of whom I've met before and some of whom I'm meeting for the first time, and to be here at Poets House is kind of a dream come true for me. I brought a little totem or amulet with me tonight. This is the Emerging Poets Fellows chapbook that was part of the 2015 cohort led by Rachel Eliza Griffiths. And it was right before I started grad school. I was here visiting a friend that summer, and it was kind of my last hurrah before kind of digging into the books, as it were. And she was like, "Do you want to go to a reading at Poets House? We could probably make it in time." And it was a packed room just like this. They even put 2 chairs like right up here. We were like the last 2 people to snake in. And it feels wonderful to be here 11 years later reading for all of you. So thank you for hosting us, and thank you for Diane for putting this together. I am going to be reading 6-ish poems from Bottom Feeders. And I love that you read both North Carolina and Louisiana poems, both places I've called home. And now, not sure if I can claim North Carolina as home, but it feels that way now. But all these poems are really about Florida, where I grew up and grew of age, and yeah, I will just start there. And I realize that my bio does decry that I believe in magic. So in keeping in that vein, we're going to start with a poem called Magician's Assistant. She could snap her fingers and a car door would open. Poof. She'd fan out a royal flush, stolen visas and MasterCards, command the Walmart cashier to pick from the deck. She charmed me, called my name, and I answered. Let her stain my couch, watched her sweat and shake through withdrawals, spoon-fed her microwave meals. The next week, she'd wave her hand, pluck $50 from behind an old man's ear, whisper a spell into a cell phone, and in minutes, a tinted Impala would arrive with her pills. I need to get well, she'd say. She didn't mean get better. Once, I looked inside her satin hat, stared into the dark and saw the sharps of 100 needles bound in a bouquet. Then the vanishing act, smoke clouds and missing wallets, and me closing the curtain as the crowd cries, "How'd she do it?" Spouting theories about trapdoors and projectors. One man insists she was nothing more than a hologram, that she was never there at all. I know how good she used to be, too, when it was still rabbits and doves. They want more, she'd say, more and more and more, until I'm standing on a stage alone, sequins sparkling and a practiced smile, assuring the audience she's safe from the saw, that all of this has been rehearsed, and I know how it's going to end. This one is a little bit of a little more joy in this one. It's called Cheap Magic. Of course we said yes when a friend asked us to star as robots in a short film for school. Cardboard box bodies, spray-painted silver, arm and neck holes cut out, box heads with different expressions on each side. No one on the crowded beach could tell. We were 2 girls holding hands, slow dancing the robot in the waves, pressing our box faces together as the sun set. Even my parents, who'd forbidden me from seeing her after catching us kissing over our math books, watched the final cut and clapped when the robots got married at the end. All it took was a cheap magic suit of armor, paper and paint to protect us. I've carried that shield with me. I call on it like a patron saint. Even now, when I'm wishing her well in her new life, that is the secret light I throw around her, silver and shining. This one is called Trapdoors. Another house party, packed in a backyard. She was blacked out, still drinking, burnt her lip, dragging on the wrong end of a lit cigarette. A sore swelled. Then, pop. From someone's pocket or purse, a pill appeared for the pain, and she swallowed. How could we know that pill was a trapdoor? That we were living in the dawn of the age of doors? That it'd get so bad they'd call it an epidemic of doors? On the news and in the courts, portals to nowhere, and each time one door opened, two more showed. A row of exits from thin air. It was doors at the movies, at the skate park, in restaurant kitchens, doors on our beautiful beach, gateways in the water, tourists and townies disappearing. Secret passages between classes at school, on our block, at your mom's place, a whole town of trapdoors, and always someone lost on the other side, someone you loved and would follow across any dark threshold. All right, I've got three more. This is Mythology of the Apple. I have 3 matching tattoos with people I don't speak to anymore. So, Mythology of the Apple. Her 19th birthday. We got matching tattoos from a friend apprenticing in a Bradenton shop. $50 and a 12-pack of Yingling for 2 red apples with eyes and fangs. My gift to her, scarred by the heavy hand of inexperience. I loved them for their flaws, as I do at the supermarket, taking home the bruised fruit someone else has tossed back. The only way to know if the inside is a grotto of rot is to cut it open. It could have easily been me or anybody else, pressing their forehead to the wall of a rehab center, a jail cell. When does a thing bitten become a thing eaten? Where was I when the animal cast its shadow over her in the orchard? In stories, apples are always poison, knowledge, discord. In this one, their memory. Younger selves flickering in the almost darkness, just when I was beginning to doubt any of it was real, that we were ever that red and ripe and innocent. Okay. I actually haven't read this one at a reading yet, so this is kind of our people poem. It's called "The Kind of People," and I think it's one long sentence. So if I run out of breath, that's okay. The kind of people. The kind of people you call when you need a hookup, a quick fix, when you get a flat, or your ride bailed, or you just don't want to walk home alone again tonight, or you need someone else's car to cruise past your exes. You call when you need a ticket to the show, to borrow some clothes, but never money. Someone to take you to anonymous meetings or parole, to get ice cream across town at that old-timey parlor, who will pick your mom up from the airport and your grandma from the hospital, who will bring you flowers or chocolate when you get dumped. You call when you're up late and when you're up early, when you need a date to your cousin's wedding or your uncle's funeral or your sister's funeral, or your neighbors or your cats, who will hold your hand when death walks in the room, when you want to dance, when you want to go hard, or when you want to do nothing but daydream, who will help you with that art project or that poem, help when you move in, when you want someone to count, when you want to dance, when you want to go hard, or when you want to do nothing but daydream, who will help you with that art project or that poem, help paint the apartment when you move out, and bring wine and snacks when you move in, When you want someone to count how long you can hold your breath, how many cheese balls can fit in your mouth, how long it's been since you used or had a drink or a cigarette, how much you've changed or haven't. Someone who knows your sun, your moon, who's seen you rising up out of that fog you've been in, who calls when you can't, though you want to and so badly need to talk, who will be the soft ground you can lie down on and finally fall apart or heal or watch the whole thing burn, who will come to your door or your window if you'll just go let them in. My contacts are doing something funny and I kept losing my place. All right, this is my last poem. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Diane, and to Black Lawrence for giving this book a home. It was on submission for over 5 years. And, you know, if you are a writer out there and you are shopping a book around or waiting for that call, it's coming. Good things are coming. This one is called Escape. They say when you travel north from Florida, you're really going south. My south had always been sea level, but here in North Carolina, there are mountains and hollers. There is winter and snow here and forests. Acorns so fat, they pop like glass bottles under your tires in the driveway. And the squirrels here certainly look like they can handle themselves. And yes, there is still coastline, though the Atlantic is a frigid smack compared to the warm lapping of Gulf waves. But I'll swim in it until I'm numb. I'll run back to you on the beach, and you'll wrap me in a towel. Whatever it was I feared would follow us here feels far away, finally. It seems like we might get to enjoy all of this. Thank you. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our next reader, Isaac Pickell. Isaac Pickell is a Black and Jewish poet, a PhD candidate, and adjunct instructor working in Detroit, Michigan, a Cave Canem Fellow. He is the author of The Smallest Mistake We Call Human from Black Lawrence 2026, so brand spanking new. He's also the author of It's Not Over Once You Figure It Out from Black Ocean in 2023, and chapbooks from Black Lawrence and Dead Mall Press. Please give it up for Isaac.
I don't know how to work these things. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Sweet. Thank you. When does a thing bitten become a thing eaten? I mean, come on. That's a great line. And a good question that I don't have the answer to. That book comes out in just a couple of weeks. So if you want to go to the Black Lawrence Press website, pre-order that, and it'll get delivered to you in a nice little package on August 18th. I'm reading at least one poem from there, but most of this is new shit. Everyone say new shit? New shit. Thank you. So thank you both. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Poets House, etc. In keeping with patterns, 5 poems, 6 poems, I'm reading 7 poems. My poem about me after Dr. Seuss. I am a boy. I have 32 teeth. I counted them. My hand is this big. I have blue eyes and brown curly hair and look nothing like my mother, except some people say I have her lips. I weigh 170 pounds, and every day I wish it were less. I live for obsessive thoughts. I think they are a great joy of mine. I will not have her forever. I'm tired of grieving twice, always losing people before they go. I wasn't prepared to read this. I lost my childhood best friend to suicide, and I have tried to follow him. I told him not to do it, but he jumped right into Niagara Falls. I'm a boy. I like to wear flowy cardigans when I dance alone because the silhouette makes me feel absolutely gorgeous. I've heard madness and clarity portrayed as counterbalances, but the maddest people I know always have the clearest eyes, the quality of knowing what they see, falling, falling, falling. I am 5 feet and 11 inches when I look in the mirror. I take 4 pills every day to stay alive. When I don't take my pills, I act funny. The porousness of being. Who can I say I am at the slip cliff of change? I worry about myself, but I'm okay. I have 3 doctors, and sometimes they say, I don't have to be this way. I love that this is a clapping audience. You can also hoot and holler if you want to. That was a sad poem. I'm so sorry to start with a sad poem. And it starts so fun. This one is from the new book. It's called Everybody Black. It wasn't a catchphrase yet, but my mother taught me straight to root for everybody black who's rooting for everybody black. And everybody black meant everybody black. Meant a lot of people who weren't, technically black, because she grew up bright caramel, knowing black was less of a skin tone and more of an orientation to the world. A slant rhyme away from the way things are supposed to be, because the white family who raised her never deprived her of an opportunity to feel out of place. So, without any better words, everybody else out of place might as well be black too. My father taught me straight to root for what was right, and he knew exactly what that meant and spent a lifetime being right about it. He grew up feeling out of place too, and rooted for every underdog he could get his hands on, and my mother just loved rooting for him. For a long time, my parents were in lockstep, except for OJ, but really everyone was wrong about OJ. My mother went to the white synagogue and my father went to a black church, and they recognized themselves in each other. This commitment to rooting for everybody, rejecting the way things are supposed to be, a commitment to rooting for everybody who didn't already have everybody else rooting for them. But I never heard them talk about Israel, about all the black people worth rooting for under her thumb that my dad wasn't really rooting for. And really, that's the problem with rooting for everybody black who's rooting for everybody black. You run out of people to root for if you pay too much attention. My mom still roots for my dad because I guess that's what you do when you root for somebody. You forget everything that makes them imperfect. Since we're on the subject of my mom, friend in the crowd, my mom asked me for you to take pictures. So can you take a couple pictures? Thank you. My mom is a terror of sweetness. Just a terror of sweetness. All right, we're gonna keep going here. This one is after Franny Choi, who some of you in the audience certainly know. It's called The World Keeps Ending and the World Goes On, after her poem of the same title. Yours was not the first cataclysm to be called a courtesy, not the first land to be cut in two just to see if it was done, then sent back by the West, who leaves you with the bill. Now, mine have these big capital letter names: the Middle Passage, the Holocaust. But every apocalypse should be a present participle, continuous tense, a state of being. The world is apocalypsing. Or maybe it's better as gerund in everyday activity. Apocalypsing is for everyone. I know the doomsday clock says 85 seconds to midnight, But we're still likely to be here in 85 years, writing poems, paying off credit card debt, tattoos sagging in the general direction of Jewish cemeteries that may or may not have me. We endure, we grow, like bugs trilling, holding doom dear, because what songs do we have left? You wrote of settlements in 2019, before apocalypse came to Palestine, or at least before it was widely recognized as such. But before the apocalypse, there was the apocalypse, a land undone in my name, the catastrophe, the occupation, generations of mothers' pride from their mothers' graves. When it came to your people, apocalypse simply called itself war. Now it's doing that again. How easy to swallow 3 letters when you're a whole ocean away from the liquid of home. How easy to be a girl from Massachusetts or a boy from Michigan naming atrocity. To be naming atrocity and doing it pretty. All right, we got a smooth transition here. This one is called The Pheasants of Detroit. There are 4 crashes from McNichols to 8 Mile. There are no sirens. The cops are taking in the storm from the station. Some of us whoosh through winter on treaded out tires and big axles. After potholes took my last set one by one, I bought discount tires, so we go 35. Life in Detroit is mostly patient and adaptive. Ring-necked pheasants are generally found in rural fields and prairies, but the city lost 2/3 of its human population. Parcels of land that used to be occupied are overgrown, the perfect habitat. When it snows, nothing stops but everything slows down. We all slow down. The birds slow down. Bright red heads bobbing through the white that clings to brown thistles and long grasses, long after every road has been cleared. The last few years, murals have popped up all over, emblems of all we have and what's gone. For the pheasants, for Brianna, for the lions, for George, for the tigers, for Tamir. So weird to see a child's face frozen and aging on brick. Our victims of police violence aren't famous, but celebrity doesn't make this place tick. I mean, you ever heard of Malice Green? As the blizzard worsens, your face goes pale. We'll make it back, I say. Do you feel safe? I say. There are only so many words for assent. People love noises about Detroit turning around. Some worry more development will mean less open space. Concerned for the ground bound fowl. Conservation groups want to keep parts of this place empty for years to come. Okay, now for something completely different. Most of the things people say to me are just things. It's a good title, I know. I love you. I love you. You could use a good humbling. Why are you hanging out on the spectrum of brokenness again? I love you. You're immature, not young at heart. My friend says you're chill, says you're dope. My friends say you can be a part of our letter writing club if you can commit to it. You should park in the garage so she doesn't know you're here. You shouldn't be so afraid to cry. You keep choosing wants and feelings over thoughts and needs. I bet you didn't take your pills today. I bet you would make a good parent. I bet you would be happier outside of gender. I love you. My friend says it's time to embrace your shamelessness. Says you need direction. My friends say Pink Pony Club was written just for you. Maybe you could start smoking again. You can still be a good person. You need to be more than iterations of yourself. I love you. Why can't you say it back? Reverence. I want to write about sex like Hannah, who I'm always telling you is the best at writing about sex, who I want you to love before you meet, because the way she writes about sex is the way she lives about life. Flagrantly, bigger than the room, lush and slippery, like it's always falling out of your hands, but not away from you. All oils and spice, fragrance and fact. And the way she writes about life is the way she sexes about sex, too. Smart, but careless. Profound, and sometimes helpless, but only when she wants to be. Because other times she's in charge, so in charge. And her life and sex are always sliding into each other like a switch couple who doesn't care who takes the lead. And she's never boring, even when she's sad. And that's why her writing about sex is so good, because it loves without making a big deal out of it. Because it wants, and it's sculptural. And do you see the contradiction? How it doesn't move and gets everything it asks for. But the sex we're having isn't the sex we're having yet. You pinch my cheek, and I hold your side. And the one time we were together, I kept getting this feeling like I should say, I'm sorry, or I love you, even though I wasn't yet, and I don't yet. And the lights were on, and I really wanted to tell you about taking all of you in, but instead I didn't say anything, because I'm not Hannah, and I don't write about sex, because I'm not sure anyone else wants to be having it like me. All right, we got one poem left. Remember, go to blacklawrencepress.com, pre-order my book. You're going to love it. You can't buy it back there. The timing was just a couple weeks off, but it'll arrive in your house, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this. It's a nice surprise. I'm sorry for selling it so hard. I'm embarrassed, but I'm not really. This last poem is a poem of celebration. It's called If I Had $1 Million, and it's after the song by the Bare Naked Ladies. That's right. I gotta get a little pump for this one. If I had $1 million, I know that someday we will win and make the wealth hoarders pay pigs who snort out loyalty pledges for the crowd while that one song echoes lonely in their head because there will never be anyone with $1 million again. And to celebrate, I'll take you fully in my mouth and shout through your engorged organ, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need, and yes, it'll be a little muffled. But you'll get the point and come right then and there, in harmony with the tenor of my voice, until you forget there ever was a nightmare named gender or a torture porn called poverty, and will lie around naked until the sun comes up and goes back down again and fuck so many more times over a 4-day weekend, while our lives are paid for by echoes of everything that was taken from us. All right, thank you all. That was fun. Thank you. This next poet shares a name with my favorite band, so I'm very excited to introduce Sébastien Luc Butler, he, him, who is the author of the chapbook Sky Tongued Back with Light from Black Lawrence Press this year in 2026, and Viscera, coming out next year from Four Way Books. Finalist for the National Poetry Series, the Levis Poetry Prize, the Autumn House Press, and Michael Waters Poetry Prizes. These are big deals. A Poe Faulkner Fellow in Poetry while at the University of Virginia. He works editorially for the Adroit Journal and lives here in New York City. Give it up for Sébastien.
Thank you for that intro. And thank you all for being here. I first heard about Poets House in a book that my partner found on the street called 50 Places to Find Quiet in New York City. It was from like the 90s, I think, or something. But I didn't live in the city at the time, although she did. And I remember thinking, oh, I can't wait to move here and go to this place. And when I did about 3 years ago, it was closed still. And I didn't know anything, really about it. And I didn't know if it would open again. Luckily, it did. And I came. And I, immediately fell in love with this place. It's amazing, like what it provides for aspiring poets and non-aspiring poets. Just kind of everyone is really singular. When I first moved, I was unemployed, and then I was underemployed, and then I made minimum wage. So I really had no spare money, and to be able to come here as a writer and read for free, read all these books that I wanted to read but I couldn't buy. To be able to do that was so incredible. So thank you. To get to read here, I'm really honored. I'm going to read a few poems from Sky Tongued Back with Light. The first poem, which opens the collection, is called Origin. Origin. There's a field wet with cricket song. There's a moon jaundiced in harvest. Inside me, bruised clouds pulling back to reveal the same unending sky. Blue kernels on the picked over cobs. There's my head, sour with youth, in a field's grass, under a moon, next to a prince in a straw hat. Him telling bits of a story all out of order. I'm not becoming, but coming out of. A moth nibbling at sugar. He says your body is a memory, which will soon have too much of itself to know what to do with. I say, let me forget, then. Bangles of stars hanging overhead like cutouts. Deer picking through the shelter belt, eyes milky with winter. It's just about to snow. The land just about to change, to obliterate itself. I'm ready for the taking, if only the taking would come. Thank you. This next poem is called Anatomy Lesson. In the yard today, a Cooper's hawk feasting on a squirrel. My first thought, not to startle it, to glean some dark red truth from its oil rig head, raw indifference, plunging skull, excavating flesh. My second, to photograph it, send it to my father, an admirer of nature's iron-clad laws, who once told me to let the snake finish devouring the frog, head staring out its throat, despite my cries. Later, we ate fish pulled from the water in front of our cabin, so fresh the flesh swam through our mouths. In communion, the wafer and wine become flesh and blood of Christ. It is not a metaphor. Neither was Jonah inside his whale. In therapy, I say, There's someone else in my body trying to worm their way out. The therapist says, imagine your body is a ship. There's the captain, and then there's a whole crew, each one pointing you where they want to go. In school, our teacher points to the model of the torso. You are mostly water. Jake raises his hand, asks, where does the spirit live? The teacher hesitates, then answers, inside your bones. When the captain of our football team breaks his skull, a helicopter lifts him skyward. We shoot deer for Thanksgiving, drown them in cranberry sauce. We play Smear the Queer, in which I'm chosen over and over, my body crushed beneath a pile of bodies, a dark cave of bone, sweat trickling into my mouth. I sob into my father's shirt. He holds me against his chest. This is the way the world works. A briny vessel. A calcium cage rocking you to sea salt, coarse light, until you hear the sound your marrow makes. This is the way the world works. Why are you crying? This next poem is called Poem for Brett. It's about my father's dear friend of many years who passed away from a heart attack in 2019. Poem for Brett. Sigh of the sun between black pillars of ash trees, falling to new nettles, piercing up damp earth as I hear your trumpet across the playground, by the fire pit, where you've played for my father each beer-deep dusk this trip, soft and wild, like a snake unfixing its jaw. My father holds your cigarette, all but a small column of ash now, burned off but still upright, while from here I stare out at the adjacent quarry, it too both empty and full, with water so blue it's anything but. Antifreeze, or maybe blood inside your heart before it burst and oxygenated its first and only time many years later, playing your trumpet to no one, excavating your body's dwelling, dredging whatever you could, more than you could, your desk facing an open window, unzipping into that chamber of breath, as I imagine now, slipping my body into this unblue, or maybe just letting go a rock and wrecking this water's perfect awful. The seconds hover. As you raise your trumpet high, my father's head tilts down, down into the hard, clear, pure, utter shatter of you. And out your window in the yard's thickening grass, the sun sets itself inside dew on cracked black walnuts, where orchard spiders scurry between red-winged blackbird beats, those Capulets burning holes in the lawn, those curt puncturing calls like scythes of light, this blade of light, just now, falling on you as you ring the bluest note from the air, the light making columns in the grass, like the bars of a cage begging to be broken into. Thank you. I'm going to break the numerical trend. I'm only going to read 4. But this last poem is an Ars Poetica. It's after my former teacher, Lisa Raspar, who is an amazing poet. I'm sure many of you have read her work. If you haven't, she's incredible. But it's after a poem of hers specifically in which she talks to the sky. So, Ars Poetica. Between sky and earth, the mouth perches its heavy want. Its slick parables, so far from the fingers, actual agents of ardor. I mistype poem as pum from the French pomme de terre, apple of earth, the earth in my mouth, my tongue clutching the word sky as a shovel turns over dirt, as the sound of dirt hitting a casket, the grief of speaking what must be made known and never understood. How else do we get closer with what fingers fail to grasp? Time's dissolution, childhood's petrichor, her ochre hair. Oh, are you the apple's skin or the reflection in the skin? Let me address you fully as I should have from the start, as I know you. Void throat, skull-capped window, cerulean plowed field of nothing, cathedral of pale ants. Tell me, is it true? Waking in you is like walking in an orchard where all prior is heard, but only from a far, opaque distance, a radio's underwater garble. Tell me, am I doing this right? Thank you. All right, I'm going to introduce Claudia Cortese. Claudia is a lesbian poet, essayist, and fiction writer. She received a 2023 New Jersey State Council for the Arts grant. Her debut full-length book, Wasp Queen, from Black Lawrence Press, won the Southern Illinois University's Devil's Kitchen Award for Emerging Poetry. Her work has appeared in Blackbird, Black Warrior Review, Swamp Pink, Gulf Coast, the Kenyon Review, and The Offing, among others, and her poems have won awards from Baltimore Review, Rhino Poetry, and Mississippi Review. Montclair State University awarded her both a 2026 Teaching Faculty Award for Excellence and a 2018 Certificate for Outstanding Faculty Ally of the Year. Cortese is the books review editor at Muzzle Magazine, and she published the first peer-reviewed article on the book covers of fat-identifying poets. The daughter of Neapolitan immigrants, Cortese grew up in Ohio and lives in New Jersey. Welcome, Claudia Cortese.
Seeing so many people I know. Awesome. Okay. I think, am I the only one who's going to read from a phone? Yes, I haven't had a printer in like so long, but I'm so impressed. You read, right. I think everyone had either a book in hand or pages. So I have a phone, and I'm going to read 3 or 4 poems. I'm not sure. I'm going to keep an eye on time, even though we time ourselves. You know, sometimes things take a little less or a little more time once we're up here. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Diane, for organizing this. And Ani, where's Ani? Is Ani here? Oh, okay. Well, Ani also did a lot of work to organize this. So thank you to Ani in Ohio. And thank you to Diane for just organizing this amazing reading and for running an amazing press. It's an honor to be on Black Lawrence. The first poem I'm going to read, and pretty much, yes, my first 2 poems, the first line of the poem is also the title, so I'm just going to read the first line and go right into the poem. This first poem is inspired by many things, among them the return of fat phobia. Yay, no, I'm just kidding, it's terrible. And I did teach the first fat studies class that Montclair State ever offered in 2021, which was amazing. The class filled, I got the best course evaluations of my life, and then I tried to run it again in 2023 because it was such a popular course and no one signed up for it, which was shocking to all of us in the gender studies program, but then I started to realize, oh, it's because diet culture's back. Oh, shit. In only 2 years, we went from a class that everyone wanted to take to a class that no one wants to take. But that's okay. We'll get it back. We'll get it back. So this poem was inspired by that, but also just, yeah. Okay. I remember pistachio gelato dripping down my sticky fingers on a Calabrian beach in summer. The first pleasure is always sugar, and the last pleasure will surely be sugar. In my final moments, I want to open my mouth like I did at First Communion, have someone I love tilt a Ready Whip nozzle into my mouth. I want to die with an explosion of sweetness. In an Instagram reel I watched today, a baby licked a substance she'd never seen before. Her doll eyes suddenly widened. She squealed and grabbed the whole cone with her fist, shoved it into her mouth as the adults around her laughed in that laughing way that only kids and animals can elicit in us. Christy Harrison says that we are all indoctrinated into diet culture without our consent, starting at a young age. I want this Instagram girl to never hear the words Ozempic, Slim Thick. Do you really need to eat that? It's a cliche, the way we roll our bellies between palms turned scissors. Imagine snipping the fat away. I once taught a fat studies class, and our class motto became, "Eat the fucking cupcake." The first time it ran, the course filled instantly. The second time, no one signed up. Gen Z, with its F your gender proms full of rainbow streamers and strap-ons, with its sapphic pop stars and marches for Black lives and lime green brat summer stickers, is bringing back the thinness of my 90s girlhood. In this boiling planet on the tip of climate disaster, where the kids know there is no future, as we hurtle into hurricane monsoons and an earth of wrinkled skin, perhaps the only thing they can control is the size of their thighs. How much a body can become all angles and hard lines while staying alive. Thank you. So I have a new girlfriend, which is very exciting. Thank you. She's not here because she's sick. She has a cold. It's so sad. She was supposed to come. I know. She's in Brooklyn under the blankets. But she's in this poem, and I just wrote it like a week ago. So I did run it by her this morning. I was like, I know you're not going to be there because you're sick, but can I read this poem? You're in it. And I showed it to her, and she approved it. She thought it was really funny. So she's only in the beginning, though, because my poems tend to leap and meander a lot. So I just want to say I have a new girlfriend, and she's awesome, and she's in this poem. Okay, that's the whole intro, I guess, but all right. My girlfriend said, "Your pussy's all mine. It's the secret garden. But your tits are the community garden. They belong to everyone." I responded, yes, they are communist tits. My tits are the means of production owned by the proletariat. We laughed as we theorized my body, then fell into each other with a feeling like ice cream, like Skittles, like candy apples in October when burnt leaf smoke sweetens the night. At a drag show 2 years before, I ate apricots glazed over pancakes, then danced with a queen, dead dropping into being a free bitch baby. She approached me after the show, said my tits were royally beautiful. I let her squeeze each of the girls, and she let me cup hers in return. Our exchange was sisterhood, not sex. This is the origin story of my nickname, Claudia with the good boobs. I enter most days tits first. I could hide them under a big shirt, and I'd bemoan no woman who does. But there are some secrets my body can't keep. The cumulus bumps along my thighs are a sky over the whole damn world. And my ass tests the limits of any jeans seams. Though I remember the year I learned hunger was optional. It was the summer of 6th grade in 1994, before summer was a murder of heat. It still had that cool edge, like the mint of mowed grass or cubes clinking in glass. Sarah, Tiffany, Beth, and I formed the Bad Girls Club. We meet in my parents' finished basement to plot the bad things for the week. The toilet paper strangling our bullies' trees, the Marlboro stolen from mother's secret boxes, the spray paint used to bless the bricks of any local church. We'd ride our bikes all day, slip out at night, while our parents slept the deep sleep, not of parents who trusted their kids to stay safe, but of parents who didn't know the words for danger, for the hurts that will never stop hurting, who didn't know how few blades need to die before the whole lawn withers. After all, it was 1994, the year the government aired their famous public service commercial, "It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?" That summer, the top of our list of bad things to do was boys. What we were supposed to do with them wasn't fully clear, but we knew any badness worth doing began with a boy and ended with a boy. That summer, I kissed one named Spencer in a backyard. I don't remember how the night looked, but I imagine a flood of stars above us, moon binging on light, its bright fats glowing across our clumsy bodies. My lips had never before touched another's lips. Tongue never slipped inside a mouth. I was ravenous, biting, ramming hard and fast. He said, "Not like that. Go slower, be more gentle." He spoke with a male tenderness I didn't realize was rare, as a 90s parent knowing where their children are. That summer, I subsisted on boys and badness, which is to say, I ate 2 meals a week. I went from specter to protagonist, from girl who no boy could see to girl caged in every boy's gaze. My favorite meal became those oblong tomatoes that once filled supermarket shelves. I'd slice 2, place them onto 10 Ritz crackers, then salt their bland skins. What we didn't put on that bad things list was anorexia nervosa. What we didn't know was that the bad thing lived inside us. We'd eaten it every day when watching our mothers walk by mirrors they couldn't look into. When we heard the news anchors say the words obesity and epidemic as horror movie music swelled behind them. The bad thing said that to be loved was to be as little body as body would allow. To become nothing, become ghost, void of hunger, of lust, of any human need. Okay, that's the poem. Thank you. So maybe I'll let you all choose my last poem, my final poem. I don't know how to do that, but I don't know. So I was like debating between 3 and 4 poems. I'm just gonna do 3. Maybe you'll clap. There's an epistolary poem. It's a letter poem, which is just a fancy way of saying a letter poem. And then there's a manifesto poem. Okay, everyone wants a manifesto, right. Okay, so I'm just gonna go for the manifesto, okay. All right, well, that was super easy, okay. So this is called Bimbo Femme Manifesto. So I love bimbos, and I love being femme, which is a queer identity. One can only be a femme if one is queer. I mean, we can all be feminine, but have you all heard of bimbo feminism? It's like an online feminist movement. Anyway, so this was kind of inspired by bimbo feminism and by me identifying as a queer femme. So it's Bimbo Femme Manifesto. Femme is not red on the skin of my lips, black liner cutting across each lid. Femme is not the counterpoint to butch, to masculine, to androgynous. No makeup and backwards cap and pants wide as Victorian skirts. A style I thought was abandoned to the warehouses of illegal raves in the 90s. Femme is my body transformed to an architecture of paint, platforms lifting me closer to cloud. The male gaze wants natural, wants minimalism, wants a woman bland as office furniture. Not this clowning in today with bangles up to each elbow. Out past the edge of respectable, the bimbo creates a glitter bomb fantasy in which she's free to dance below a heaven of disco balls, spinning bright shards across the gravel of broken Bud Light bottles at her feet. A place where gender meets power and says, "Hello, nice to meet you." The bimbo declares that it's not the meek who will inherit this planet of moons rainbowing the sky. The drag queen, the queer girl, the ones called trash, rule this new place where there is no loneliness, no rape, no memories that aren't memories, but are how the violence stays alive forever. On this planet of camp, neon skirts flaunt fat asses. Crop tops hug bellies that finally feel safe to flaunt their softness. Thank you. Thank you. Max, McDonough? Okay, great. Max McDonough's work has appeared in the New York Times, the Best New Poets Anthology, Agni, Northwest Review, the Adroit Journal, Ecotone, T Magazine, and elsewhere. He is a graduate of the Vanderbilt MFA program and now lives and teaches in Philadelphia. Python with a Dog Inside It is his debut collection. Congratulations. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Okay. I'm a little terrified of like popping my peas or whatever. Is it okay? Is it all right? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is really exciting. Thank you, Black Lawrence Press. Thank you, Poets House. Thank you, my fellow readers. I was trying to decide what to read, and a lot of computer stuff came up. So we're just going to stick with that. My book is about growing up in the sticks outside of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Big family. The police are there a lot. It's like the lights are going at my house. So there's there's some sad stuff, but we'll get to the gay stuff soon, I promise. All right. This one is called Mere Atmosphere. I looked it up. The internet's data centers are sleepless white rooms filled with hives of hard drives, cooled by towers of groundwater, photographic, satellite-stitched together fragments to approximate the whole, which tonight is this Google map of the neighborhood I grew up in, the old house that holds its dark inside like a fist or a skull. On the quasi-3D map, the backyard pool I often tried for fun to drown my brother in is uncovered, clear, the shape pinched in the middle like a cell in mitosis, splitting apart from itself. I zoom further in, but can't see through the house's roof to the kitchen, where my mother is helping him with homework, banging her fist on the paper. Eraser shavings cling to the greasy table, Sorry, sorry, he winces as I divide to smaller selves, shrinking to the basement. You need a therapist, a stranger, not unintelligent, once said to me, meaning, why so much unsatisfying opaqueness? Stranger, I'll tell you this. It was night. After, there was a hole in the wall, the size of my brother's skull. Clicking, 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 clicking. In a data center, a light goes on. A machine starts breathing. Often I've seen what is not visible but pulls like a strange gravity in my skull. Often I blamed myself for the rust inside the perfect steel. If looking through air we can't see air, still we're breathing like machines, motion inverted, repeating. It happened, now it's over now, it's happening. A light goes on in my fist, gnawing between my knuckles. I'm trying to open it. Different computer. Yeah, like this is before laptops, right? So there was like a family computer in a family room with French doors that you could see through. Okay. But there was lace in front of the, anyway. This is called my mother's computer. In the sheer sloth of another school night, another social studies assignment, the first time I was allowed to use it, the same one she adopted my siblings from, auctioned off her dolls, but more often bought more to put customized outfits on. The bulky black Dell perplexed me, like looking into a pond and seeing vague movements underwater. Whisper a name. George, I entered, pecking the keys, sheepish like my mother would with only index fingers, then Bush for the project I would complete, like the example child I had deemed myself. Images of a confused-looking man filled the screen, useful to me, though I already knew before I knew to stop myself what I was about to do, glancing left, then right. My mother upstairs somewhere, the house uncannily quiet. The communal privacy of her computer room, interrupted only by a dusty moth assaulting the overhead light. His running mate, Dick, I typed, clicked search, no Cheney, no pause, unwinding a jack in the box, her computer screen bursting with anatomical diagrams and plush abdominal down, bronze men trapped in the gallery's rigid grid, little rooms in which, stiff, they held themselves like trophies, as I was holding myself astonished in the glow of that rectangular world. So I'm getting married at the end of this month. And I guess that poem is like the beginning of that journey for me. This is one more sort of like a little bit of a computer poem, and then snake stuff. Okay. It's called Mother Tongue. I think this is why I'm a poet. So I don't know if you could tell from the earlier poem, kind of a difficult mother, kind of a situation, but she would always change language in interesting ways and not on purpose. And I think that's what first brought me to tinkering and seeing what fresh, different, unexpected language can do. So, mother tongue. My mother, blogger, doll addict, cyber queen, sniper at the eBay auction computer screen, mixed her idioms. From the get-go, for example, became from the gecko when she said it. Not the sharpest bowling ball in the shed. He side-blinded me. Shithead thinks he's cool as mustard. Thinks he's right up my sleeve. I escaped from New Jersey for college, which opened up a whole nother can of germs. In emails, I wrote, "Professor, I'll have to mow it over a little longer." Professor, without a question of a doubt. I didn't realize I made switches too until I reread them, a nervous first-gen scholarship student, as I'm sure my mother didn't think she'd altered anything in her life. But that's a different chiasmus for a different line of thought. Not for nights like this one, alone and happy mostly. My heart at the peck and call, though, of those suburban woods of my childhood again, the ultraviolet yellow feathers of witch hazel thicket, serrated huckleberry leaves, the understory so dense, tangled to itself, that walking a straight line becomes a tight circle, and my mother's voice is mine. I am terrified she's going to show up unannounced at my wedding, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So this is a poem about a fight with my fiance, who's very stubborn. And also really smart. It's a terrible combination, you know what I mean? All right, after the fight. Never mind, there is no place that is not this place. Begin with the landscape. Fog hovers over the long bend of marsh. I know. Kayaks, a few, bright and docked, but there's one rope vacant, its knotted end drifting in place in the slow current. So someone or two must be out on the water at this strange hour of overflow, morning sheen and muck. Come closer to me. It's my favorite thing, imagining the comings and goings and why not. A destination intimates want. Put your hand on the back of my neck. The mooring of your hand is what I want. I'm incredibly pleasant to live with, as you can tell. So this one is called Python with a Dog Inside It. It's the title of the book. It's not a metaphor for marriage. And it's Florida inspired. Bradenton specifically. Yeah. All right. Python with a dog inside it. Poor dog. Chained to the pine behind the camper RV. Where else could it go but in? White barb, placental speckle unwriggling, and the elastic ligament that walks the skull unhinged over the dog's tufty head, neck, torso, tail. There could be heaven in there. Pleasure in adrenaline, pleasure in uncoiling the grip, pulsed bristles, halogen leaking from the vacant bocce courts. But the chain yanks back, tangled around the dog, already in the throat's long slink. And because the dog, wet, fetal, slides head first in, the python with no mechanism for revision is tethered to what it did, and to the pine, whose fan of roots anchors it to the ground, the dog to it. Everything wears its consequence, extending beyond itself the visible. This is what we see. Pattered mud, metal bowl tipped over, film of water glinting white, crisscrossing spike-like shadows darkening toward morning's old man, the machete he'll bring, not yet, all night, the other world, chained to this world by its stuff, a dog, a chain, a pine, a python. That's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to our wonderful readers. And, of course, thank you to Poets House. We only have this space for a little bit longer. Please eat the snacks that we brought. And if you would like to support the press and our authors, please buy copies of books. We have them at the back. Thank you.